Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneur Mind Speak. I'm Lauren with Creme de Mint, a branding and packaging design agency. And today I would like to welcome Amy Marks-McGee. Thank you so much for being here, Amy.
Thank you, Lauren, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I would love to hear about your background. Like, I know that you run Trendincite. I'd love to hear about how you got started in the industry.
I'm in the fragrance and flavor industry, and like many others, I fell into this industry. Years ago, I had applied for a travel position through a temp agency, which does not exist anymore, I don't think. And the recruiter sent me on an interview, and it wasn't for travel, it was for a marketing assistant at International Flavors and Fragrances, so at IFF. So I spent the day at IFF, the entire day, which was also kind of unheard of. I interviewed after interview with several different departments. And by the end of the day, they hired me on the spot. The rest is history. I spent 15 years in marketing with three leading fragrance houses. And then in 2016, I launched Trendincite. There are a lot of people that don't even realize that there's a fragrance and flavor industry that even exists. So many consumers don't realize it, but that companies and brands, consumer packaged goods, the products that they make often don't smell good. So they might make a base that will do something for you, like get you clean. So for example, Dove by Unilever, they have a very recognizable signature scent. So they might make a soap that cleans your body and washes you, but it doesn't necessarily smell good, and they would never put it on the shelf as is. And that's where fragrance and flavor suppliers come in. So a perfumer at a fragrance house will specifically create a scent designed for that soap. And when Dove goes to manufacture, they put the fragrance into the formula. And then at the end of the day, when you look at a consumer package label, you'll see the word fragrance. So any consumer packaged goods that you're using, whether it's your deodorant, your soaps, your shampoos, all the way down to household cleaning, toilet bowl cleaners, dishwashing soap, pet products, they usually have a fragrance, and that's the fragrance supplier side of the industry.
And
The
so did
same,
they all come from those same three fragrance houses? Did you say three? How
I
many?
work for the three leading fragrance
The three
houses.
leading ones. Okay.
So IFF was the first one I held the
Yep.
position. The second one was a small company, Noville, which was family run, and it was
Uh-huh.
purchased by Firmenich, which is another very big house. And the last position I was held was at Givaudan. These are the three I worked with before I launched Trendincite. Many of my current clients are smaller, mid-tier, and smaller privately owned companies. So they're not the only three. There are several more.
Yeah.
And they
Okay.
all compete. They all have different specialties, but they're all competing for putting a fragrance in a consumer packaged goods or putting a flavor in a consumer packaged good product, which leads me to the next example. So any product that you are consuming, like your morning coffee, your afternoon pick-me-up snack, your late night dessert, those products have had a flavor put into them. So the flavor supplier side of the industry is a flavorist. So those are the people that are creating the flavors specifically for the products. They make a they make a flavor for a product. So for example, if you think about a Pringles everything bagel potato chip by Kellogg's, that is a flavor that was put into the potato chip. Or the Baja Blast from Mountain Dew, which is a recent flavor, those were created by a flavorist. So when you look at the label on anything that you're eating or drinking and you read the ingredient list and the word flavor is there, that one aspect is the contribution that a fragrance or flavor supplier has made to your product, which means that the fragrance and flavor houses are the taste makers that are creating the sense and taste behind every single product that you're enjoying of all those consumer packaged goods.
Super interesting. So it's only if you see the word flavor in food products, correct? If you
Right.
don't see that, then if it says like natural flavors, that's also
Natural flavors
flavorist.
is still related to a flavor.
Yes.
So
Right,
it could be
right, right.
natural art. If it says
Uh-huh.
sometimes it says natural flavors, sometimes it says artificial flavors. Sometimes some things are natural, but they have certain ingredients. And sometimes there are products that, I don't know, some things like some of the plant-based foods or some of the CBD products, and they don't inherently have some off notes and they don't inherently taste good. So they might actually have some kind of technology or a maskant, like a particular type of flavor that is making the off note go away or less
Oh,
recognizable.
interesting.
And
Very
even unscented, sometimes
uh-huh,
a product says unscented.
uh-huh.
So it might be unscented where they're not putting a fragrance for you to recognize that it's a fragrance, but it might have some kind of maskant or technology so that the deodorant doesn't smell off or not nice, if that makes sense.
Wow, that is so interesting. I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective.
So yeah,
So
it's a really fragrance and flavor are like an emotional connection to products, and I think
uh-huh.
people take that for granted sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I think I do. So tell me about like the types of services that you provide to CPG companies.
So Trendincite provides a variety of different services, and we have them broken down into 4 categories. So the first one is marketing presentation and trend reports. And essentially, everything that Trendincite does is custom designed. So it's specifically for our clients' needs. Our fragrance and flavor and consumer packaged goods, they're kind of unique industries. And so everything I create is specific to the client's needs. So for marketing presentations and trend reports, I create custom food, beverage, and fragrance marketing, trend presentations, and reports based on specific client needs. Then some clients are interested in market research. So I help design primary and secondary fragrance, food, and beverage market research and analysis services. When I'm doing primary research, I team up with a notable research agency who helps me get the primary research. And then once I have the consumer research, I do the analysis and then put a presentation together. And then I'm also a fragrance and flavor writer. So professionally, I write for businesses such as ghostwriting, branded content, newsletters. Some people have electronic newsletters, blog posts, even website copy. Sometimes it's press releases, but it's specifically designed for clients that work within or service the fragrance and flavor industry. So it could be specific B2B or it could be the B2C for consumers, but a lot of it's the kind of behind the scenes. And then the last thing that I offer is trend excursions. And this is something that I launched Trendincite really, that was my passion and what it's based on. So you spend a lot of time in the office from 9 to 5, and I found that my best ideas were not coming when I was sitting at my desk trying to problem solve a problem. It was when I was out on the weekends, when I was dining out, when I was being entertained, when I was playing with the children. It was always something that was unrelated to me sitting at my desk. So I take people on guided customary sensory trend excursions to unique shops and boutiques, usually in New York City. And the idea is to engage all 5 senses, stimulate creativity, and with the hopes of inspiring new product ideas.
Listening to you talk about trend excursions and and the research. I mean, you really do a very wide gamut of things in your company. I'd like to dive into a few of these just so I can get a better understanding of how you work with companies. If somebody were to come to you with say they wanted to have some market research and decide what their next flavor is for whatever whatever brand they have, or maybe, they have a product, they want to create another product. Is that something that you help them with? You help them try to figure out what that next product could be, or how does that work?
So I do, it's kind of the sometimes I'll do brand analysis with a client that's they are looking at their brand and we're looking for gaps. So they're looking for a gap in their flavor or they're looking for a gap in their fragrance. But I tend to do more of the background pre-research. So say a brand is interested in creating a new product, but they want to know what's happening in the landscape. What's the competition? What are some of the cool products? So I tend to do a marketing or a trend presentation related to that particular scope. So
Mm-hmm.
say someone was doing beverages or someone was doing candles or home fragrance. They kind of want to know what's going on in the beverage space or in the candle space. So I would do a trend presentation on those spaces and give market examples to show them how some of these trends are being translated and to help them say, oh, this is what's going on, and maybe make some recommendations for some fragrances or flavors that were missing in their brand analysis. I spent a lot of time when I was in corporate working on very specific brands and always wondering like what was the next ingredient, what was the next flavor, what was next. But the problem with what's next and something that I found in corporate is it takes a very long time. I could come up with a concept and I don't know if that concept won and where it was put in until possibly like a year, year and a half, 2 years later. And sometimes I don't even know that it happened. So
Right, right, right. And that's how it is with a lot of bigger companies. But with the smaller companies, I'm sure that you'll know more of that and you have more influence. And do you find that more interesting then because you are able to be more a part of it?
I do. What's funny is when I was in corporate, it took so long to find out anything. And then I realized now when I work on the company and the proactive stuff that I'm working on, if a brand launches something great, if they don't launch it, that's okay too. It's that I gave them the input and the market, whether it's secondary market research or primary market research, they had the tools to kind of get a big picture of an understanding of what was going on. So if I recommended something or tell them about what was happening, and then it takes them a long time to get to the market, maybe by the time they got to the market, either that trend exploded or maybe that trend faded. It really depends.
Mhm. Super
Um,
interesting. And what are the top trends that you're seeing this year in flavors and fragrances?
So every year, Trendincite designs like their top 5 trends to watch for each year. So for this year, for 2024, there were 5 trends we selected. The first one was called Kids Will Be Kids. And essentially, it's parents and caretakers want what's best for their children. And as parents are focusing on their own health and wellness, because as we know, health and wellness is like this very big umbrella that have people have always been interested in, but with COVID and the pandemic, it just accelerated their interest, and that interest continues. Like now, it's not even like a want to have; it's really part of people's lifestyle. They're like putting it self care is becoming very important.
Yeah, I've been noticing that. In fact, like just not far from here, there's a place where all of the shops have now turned to like wellness and exercise focused shops. And it didn't used to be that way pre-COVID. It's just fascinating to see it changing right before our eyes.
Yeah, it definitely is changing. So what I'm seeing is now, so the parents are focusing on their own health and wellness, and it's in their lifestyles. So now
Mhm.
this behavior is being echoed in consumer packaged goods and services that they're choosing for their children. So it's really
Mm.
so you're gonna start I mean, I'm seeing them and this is not necessarily a brand new trend, but it's just becoming more apparent. There's more products for kids that are, like, healthier, they're more sustainable, they're more, they've got plant-based ingredients, they're cleaner formulas. So we're gonna start seeing more of products created for kids, but based on what's trending in, adult lifestyles.
Interesting.
The second trend, we called it refillable and reusable revolution. And then when we're talking about sustainability, and I'm sure you deal with this when you're doing your packaging designs. So sustainability is becoming a priority. Before it was earlier when sustainability was happening, it was kind of a nice to have, but it wasn't necessarily a must have. But now as brands are launching, people are expecting these products to be sustainable. So they're expecting the companies to build better for the environment, sustainable packaging. So we're seeing a lot more refillable packaging evolve and reduce material use and even lower carbon emissions.
This is great. I love it.
So I'm sure that like impacts the work that you're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely get a lot of clients coming to us asking for that. I think the tricky part sometimes is finding sustainable options in small quantities. That sometimes has been difficult in the past. It is getting easier though.
Yeah, I think there's more options, but it can also be expensive. I know it can be
Yes.
sometimes prohibitive for smaller brands.
Right.
It depends, but the third trend I'm seeing is we all scream for ice cream, and this is a trend you kind of have to love. But
Love it.
ice cream's a fan favorite among all generations, and it never goes out of style. But we're seeing, whether it's savory ice cream and unexpected collaborations to freeze dry to do it yourself mixes, ice cream is really a popular vehicle to experiment. So it could be dairy based or plant based, but consumers still want their ice cream. So there's a lot of innovation and happening within ice cream.
What kind of innovation are you seeing?
Well, if
Like,
you look at Van Leeuwen and their ice cream
uh-huh.
partnership with
Yep.
Walmart,
Yeah.
They've been doing crazy savory collaborations with like Kraft mac and cheese. So they made a mac and cheese ice cream.
Uh-huh.
They did a ranch dressing ice cream.
I think I heard about that one. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm not a ranch fan.
No.
I think I'm one of the few who is not a ranch fan, and they try to put
Yeah.
ranch in everything. And I just recently saw that a company was making ranch flavored cotton candy.
Oh my
So we're
gosh.
seeing some savory, like unexpected collaborations. Jenny's Splendid does some interesting work. Salt and Straw in
What are they doing?
California.
What's Jenny's doing?
Jenny's sometimes does partnerships. I'm trying to think. I can't think of one of their most recent ones, but sometimes they mix savory, they mix sweet. They sometimes it's like they do breakfast. They did a breakfast line. So,
Oh,
like with maple,
cool.
maple pancakes and
Right.
biscuits and gravy. So it's a lot of things that you like the flavors, but you don't expect them in your ice cream.
Right, right. Yeah, I never, I don't notice those flavors as much because I'm dairy free. So
Okay.
when I'm looking at ice cream, I'm always looking for the options that I can eat. And so then I'm just like, oh, I don't want to look at those options because I can't have them, and I get all sad. So
There is more activity happening in non-dairy based ice creams
yes,
with like the
thankfully.
coconut
Yes, I've been
bases,
seeing that too.
plant-based, a lot of different flavors. They're even some of them are putting the adaptogens. There's like a there's
Yes.
one of the ice creams is for night. It's a nighttime ice cream, supposed to help you sleep. So
Oh,
there's a lot of
wow. I
different.
haven't seen that one. Who do you remember which brand that was?
Oh my God, I have to look it up. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
They've been out for a little while. It's not
Okay.
a brand new brand,
Okay.
but ice cream is definitely one of those. It's an interesting vehicle because it lends itself for experimentation.
Uh-huh. And then going back to your last set of trends, I know you had a couple more
Two
trends and I
more.
stopped you in the middle.
So the next one is we called it hold this. And consumers seek convenience in our snack, and we know that snacking has proliferated. And we're seeing, between the quick service restaurants with the chicken sandwich wars and the influence of all these global street foods, we're seeing handheld foods on the rise. So this demand for convenient portable food options is driving handheld innovations in both format and flavor. Like if you think about tacos, we're seeing
Yeah,
a lot more applications
absolutely.
with
No, I can
tacos.
definitely I mean, this one really speaks to me. Like, I feel like I'm always on the go and I want to grab something and eat it, but I want it to be healthy. And sometimes like the snack food things are not. So you're like I want the healthy thing that I can grab and, eat while I'm
And
driving.
eat, definitely. And then the last trend, we called it robots lend a helping hand. And we know we've seen a lot of activity in AI, which I'm interested in, but what I think is a little bit more interesting because it's a little bit more physical and tangible is that from slicing and dicing and salad prep to churning out coffee and slinging burgers, and even delivering robots, like they're enhancing the whole dining experience, and we're beginning to see them emerge in the beauty space. So don't be surprised if you start seeing robots
Oh.
either serving you or in the back prepping products or something. It's definitely happening.
Have you seen this anywhere? Like you're in New York City. Have you seen anything like that?
I think it's called the Prince Tea House. They have a couple locations. I was
Uh-huh.
downtown and they have a little robot that like the server comes and takes your order, but then the little robot like kind of comes out and brings the food on the cart to you and plays like some songs and stuff. It's kind of funny. And then the server actually takes it off and puts it on your in front of you, but there is a little robot, and I think I think it helps a little bit. I think it's more kitsch than it is actually
Right,
like,
right, right. That makes sense.
but there
Yeah.
are companies that are using robots in the kitchen to like slice like pepperoni for pizza or do some of the monotonous
Really?
jobs that the people
Yeah.
do not like and have a hard time
Uh-huh.
getting people to fill the position.
Like in your experience, like what are some common challenges that business owners in the food and fragrance industries face when it comes to product development and marketing?
So when I think of product development, I often think about the time because product development it's very time consuming. Like it takes a
Mhm.
long time, particularly if there's a lot of research involved or the way their applications and formulas. So in terms of that, product development is time consuming, but trends are happening quickly. So there's like kind of this fine line balance. And one of
Right.
the challenges for a brand is to decide if and how they want to address a trend. And is that a trend that's short-lived, like something happening on TikTok and something on social media? Or is the trend longer term, like the consumer's interest in health and wellness? So I really think that how quickly a brand can adapt or get to market can be very challenging. Another challenge, I think, is in general, our shelves are crowded. There's a lot of noise in that marketplace, and it doesn't matter which shelf you're looking at. I'm always amazed that their shelf is so crowded, you don't think another brand could possibly make room, but they get it, they make room and they're like on that shelf. So their consumers are continually like their attention span's short and brands are continually trying to get their attention.
Mhm,
So I feel like finding a brand's unique proposition and their difference and being able to stand out through that marketing and that challenge, that crowd is very challenging. And that marketing is package design, it's the copy, it's the promotion, it's the activation, it's the social media. Like there's so many aspects of that marketing, but I
mhm,
really feel like consumers' attention spans are very short, but their expectations are very high. And I feel like that is challenging. And I also feel before, like years ago, before social media was so popular and before the internet was like so overused, it took a long time for people to get educated on products. Now consumers are educated and they're demanding much more demanding than they were in previous years. So their expectations are a lot higher. So you have it's a tall order to fill.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, absolutely. No, I would agree with that completely. And talk to me, like, how do you approach creating marketing presentation and trend reports for your clients? Like, what elements do you focus on to make sure that it's, relevant and has impact?
So because I work in fragrance and flavor, I get to see like a big picture of what's happening in the marketplace. And it's a bit unusual because most marketers or consultants only focus on one side. So they're either doing flavors or fragrances. So that gives me an interesting perspective. It's a very broad perspective. So when I create marketing presentations and trend reports for clients, I'm identifying the trends that are happening within services and consumer packaged goods across multiple categories and their influences, which is really helpful. And I often focus on the consumer, the connection between fragrances, flavors, and ingredients, and how all those ideas are coming from different categories, but they can be applied and translated into new products or applications or help inspire the next product development. And as I mentioned earlier, I like to show some market examples to make those trends tangible. So if I'm talking about, say, one of the clients is, I don't know, beverages, and I'm talking about like savory is like a really important category because we're seeing a lot of savory in snacks. Or I mentioned we're seeing savory in ice cream. I might bring up products that are happening that I think are interesting in ice cream or snacks, even though it's not a beverage, to show them like these are some ideas to make it tangible.
Mhm.
And I think one of the key elements that I focus on that makes it impactful or relevant is that I'm making the connections for them. Sometimes the connections aren't always front and center, and I help make the connections for the clients.
Yeah, that sounds very helpful because I think there's so much information out there. It's hard to, sift through it. So it's helpful to have someone that's what they have been focusing on and can see that and can bring in those new ideas, bring in those new connections. What role does market research play in helping business owners make informed decisions about what products to launch?
So, in general, I think that research helps people better understand a market and to see how much competition there is and where there might be white space and opportunities. I think it's really important to know the landscape and understand who your target audience is. And I think research helps provide some of those key insights. But I know that we have to keep in mind that there's two kinds of research: the primary research, which I mentioned, which is your firsthand, obtained firsthand, but it's typically expensive. It's much more expensive than secondary research. And secondary research is the research that's already been published by somebody else. And regardless of the data that you're looking for, whether it's primary or secondary research, finding information about what's happening within the marketplace is really important to help you make informed decisions. So they should, depending on their budget, they should invest in some type of research. And it could be even people research, small brands sometimes research with their friends and family, or they've done taste studies and stuff. So it could be scrappy, but
So,
getting feedback is really
yeah, talk
important.
to me about what that might look like for a smaller brand. Like, what would they do?
So I often see that small brands, like if they're making a flavor, they made a product. And I often see that they started making it at home and they would give it to some friends to try. And then the friends really liked it. So then they started sharing it with other friends and they started getting feedback like, oh, you should really sell this. Oh, and then they started going, they might go to like a market, a farmer's market. And then they start getting feedback and they'll be like, oh, we really, oh, do you have any, cheddar cheese chips? Or cheese is a really popular flavor. Do you have anything spicy? So they start kind of seeing where the market's at and what people are asking for and kind of what's trending. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then they might be able to take different feedback and create a product that maybe combines the two. Like, oh, they were asking for something cheesy, but they wanted something spicy. So let's give them a really spicy application. Um,
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I often tell my clients that, listen to what your customers are saying because they like you want to use those words because what they're sharing with you, you want to share with your customers so that it's because they're telling you what they like about your products.
right. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you share any like success stories or case studies where your services have made a significant impact on a client's business?
So I can give you a couple of examples. The first example is, as I mentioned, that a fragrance takes a long time to go to market. So you can do a ton of trend presentations and concepts, but you may never see them come to fruition. So many, many, many years ago, when I was working for corporate, I had to do a whole bunch of candle concepts for Yankee Candle. I worked on that account for many, many years. And I had a concept was called, I wanted it to smell like suntan lotion, like kind of a copper tone, because I love the smell of the sand and the sun and the beach. So I called it Sun and Sand. And we submitted it, never heard anything about it. Years later, after I had launched Trendincite, I bumped into and reconnected with the marketer I had presented this concept to. And I said, oh, I just recently saw that you launched, the Sun and Sand. And I was like, oh, I don't even know which house that was for. And he kind of smiled. He didn't answer me, but he gave me his new business card. And the business card was a scratch and sniff of that Sun and Sand candle fragrance. And to me, that was a success story.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. That's so
So
awesome.
I really liked that. And I also liked that it was because it was a scratch and sniff, it was tangible. One
That
other example I think is kind of a funny example. When I was in corporate, I had been pushing for someone in fragrances to make a bacon scented product. I wanted
uh-huh.
candles or something. And everyone looked at me like I was crazy. But I'm like, people love the smell of bacon. So in 2010, I wrote my first article for Perfumer and Flavors magazine, which is business to business. And the whole article was about bacon and how bacon's trending. And it was in 2010. And I said in the article that we're going to eventually see bacon scented products. So a year later, there was a product called Bacon by Fragne, was a fine fragrance that launched. And now there are several products on the market that are bacon scented. I've seen candles,
Yeah, I have
fragrances,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
soaps. So those are my two examples.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It almost seems like that a trend that you identify, maybe it was a small trend, but then starts to grow because you've identified it or you had identified it for your clients. And then they start to, do something in that trend and then someone else does and someone else and it almost has a domino effect. Like you're almost creating the trend on some level.
I believe that a lot of the fragrance and flavor houses, that's kind of how it works. We come
Uh-huh.
up with these concepts, we create these ideas for trends, and then they start escalating. They kind of come in full circle. So I
Right,
do
right. They have
think
like a domino effect almost or
definitely
a
a domino effect, but I also think that some of the trends are cyclical,
uh-huh.
like because kind of that whole nostalgia and what's old is new again. Like, because
Right.
different generations didn't experience it, so now they have a new generation experiencing it, but it's been changed, or it's been a little bit like in the 90s, there's a lot of activity happening with body sprays. And in the 90s, everybody was about body sprays because it was kind of like, but they were a little bit more cloying and they weren't as sophisticated. But now we have these high-end brands launching body sprays, and the
Right.
fragrances are more sophisticated, and
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a different style. But
Mm.
so it's kind of taking something and reinventing it.
Mhm, mhm. Well, this has been great, Amy. I'm so glad that we brought you on the episode today. How can people reach out to you if they wanna work with you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed speaking about trends and my business with you. So thank you for the opportunity. So if people want to get in touch, they can visit my website, which is Trendincite, but it's spelled TRENDINCITE.com. So instead of insight, it was a play on words. And you can email me at amy@trendinsight.com. And if you're interested, I also publish a monthly trend article about consumer products, flavors, fragrances, ingredients, and lifestyle trends that you can sign up and receive it monthly in your inbox. So if you go to my Trend Insight website and you look under trend articles, you can sign up if interested.
Great, wonderful. Yes, I'm subscribed, so it's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amy. Well, that concludes another episode of Entrepreneur Mind Speak. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.